What's up guys, it's Rowan here from Smart TV. HSC English is one of those subjects that unfortunately can be quite painful for students. It's compulsory first of all, maybe you need to also take it to get into a certain university course, and perhaps it's also not your favourite subject. And so in today's video, we're going to be chatting with Keean, who really, that sort of describes English for him. It was a subject that was not his favourite, had to take it, and we're going to look at one, how do you find ways to get through English if it isn't a subject you enjoy, and then importantly, how do you also turn your results around if it's not quite looking where you want it to go? Because unfortunately, it is compulsory, and so it's one of those subjects that you do need to work on lifting to just lift your overall ATAR to maximise options. And so, Keean was able to turn his results around with a 17% improvement across Year 11 and Year 12. So we're going to also unpack a little bit of what Keean did to actually make that happen. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So now, English wasn't your favourite subject, is that right?
No, it was definitely my least favourite subject out of everything I had to do.
And why was that? What was it about English that just didn't work for you?
I was never good at analysing or understanding like the underneath like the hidden meanings or the underlayers of text, and it always just stumped me, and it was really hard to write essays based on that because in my mind I had no content. So it's just me kind of trying to get through.
So that sounds very challenging, right? Because you've got to write 1,000 words, and it's sitting there thinking, well, I've read the text, it was an interesting book, but I've got nothing to say, essentially. I think that's a pretty common challenge. I think a lot of people feel that exact way. So, you've got this subject, English is not your favourite because of this difficulty. What ended up happening in Year 11 then? How were you going as a result of this clear passion for English?
Well, in Year 11, so I was usually a teacher's pet even in the classes, even though if my academics weren't necessarily up to standard, I would just enjoy, like the teachers would enjoy my company because I would still try in class. Like I was definitely trying hard, but I just would never get it. I would never understand the content and the techniques, and that made all the essays and, oh my god, creative writing. I hate creative writing. With a passion, I just could not think in that mindset, and that just really made all the assessments and all the exercise, and just it made me really hate the subject because I was just not good at anything that it required me to do, no matter how much effort I put into it.
And so then that's Year 11, right, and probably part of Year 12 as well by the sounds of it. So it sounds like in Year 11, from what you shared, you were sort of sitting on like the 60s as a result in the sort of results you were getting just because of this difficulty, is that correct?
Yeah.
So then, I'm imagining that sort of is also slightly scary, right? Because it's compulsory, you're looking at this and you're thinking, well, I've got to take this for another entire year, and I'm not enjoying it, and this is not looking good. So, if we fast forward for a moment, we get to the end of Year 12, and then we'll come back and fill in the space in between. How did you end up going in the HSC, your final results for HSC Standard?
So I ended up getting a 79 at the end of the HSC, and for me, that was quite an improvement. I was very happy to have that. Like, it was just under Band 5, which was kind of annoying because I technically needed that for my dream uni course, which sucked. Like, I could not get it, but I'm still very proud of how I did and what I was able to accomplish in that year. So yeah, 79, which was good. That was like with all the assessments and stuff.
So that's awesome. So just to put that in context, it's a minimum 17% improvement between Year 11 and Year 12. And it is such a shame that you were so close. But I think to highlight, there's a huge growth that happened there, despite English being, as you said, this subject that you just didn't get, right? That it was really pushing an uphill battle. So the reason I wanted to sort of just highlight that is that I think your experience of being in Year 11, facing the gauntlet of Year 12 English, not enjoying it, and the results not looking great is a common one. So, you were able to make a significant difference over the course of Year 12. And so what I'd love to find out so that other students can also navigate this is, what did you do, right? What changed over the course of, as you went through Year 11 and as you got into Year 12 that started making a difference and started helping you lift your results?
Well, I'd definitely say I think it was more of a mindset change. So when I come into writing essay, I would come in and I'd be like, okay, if this is horrible now, that's fine, I can improve it. I just don't want to leave it so that it is horrible at the end of my HSC. So it's like if I just go for it, I write something and I just find the ways I can improve it, then that means over the course of like the year, then every time if I improved it a little, by the end of it, I'll be writing not so horrible essays.
So it sounds like it was really a mindset of continuous improvement. It was like, okay, like it's gonna suck, acceptance. Yes. And then once the acceptance was there, it was like, all right, great, let's just, continuously work to enhance it, enhance it, knowing that hopefully then after, a number of iterations, it was gonna be in a better place.
Yeah.
So it sounds like to make that work, you would have needed to really be quite consistent in your work for English in terms of, starting, earlier, making sure that you're getting on top of your texts, writing those essays, getting feedback on them. What did that look like? Let's take, common module as an example. Does that mean that you were starting to work on the text quite early in the term then?
Yeah, I went and asked my teacher, it's like, so what are we doing? Like the first day of school that year, I was just like, okay, what is the plan so I could attack everything earlier? Because I knew that I would need the extra time to go through everything, to consolidate, and so I would have a better understanding. So definitely get onto things early, and I also definitely did all the work and tried to maintain that, because I knew if I didn't do that, that's like the minimum that I would have to do to be able to improve. And
were you getting a lot of feedback? Because it sounds like starting early was important, right? Which is awesome to hear. Reading your texts early, fantastic. To improve, I'm imagining you needed to get feedback. What did that feedback process look like for you so that you could iteratively, push this essay up the hill or the creative writing up the hill to get it to a point?
Yeah, well, so I had a tutor for English, and I also had my teacher. So I would write essays or do questions and I would do questions, and then I would send the essays to both my tutor and my teacher, because they were both much better at English than I was, so they could definitely help me out with that. So I would kind of give them that, they'd give me some feedback, and I would try then rewrite or do some kind of, if it was a long essay, I didn't necessarily want to write the entire essay, but I'd do kind of little snippets of like the most critical areas and like redo them using the advice and feedback that I was given from them.
Awesome. And so one of those was Patrick, is that right? Art Smart Tutor, which was great. So yeah, shout out to Patrick. I'm sure he'll love it. To dig in a little bit, so what were you typically doing week to week with Patrick then in the sessions that you were working with him on?
So one of my biggest kind of weaknesses was just understanding the content and having ideas to write about. So that's something that we would go in and we'd make sure that I'd have a bit more of a developed understanding than maybe we were going in class or that I had, and he'd give me good terms and would just go through the content more in depth in that hour lesson in there, yeah.
So it sounds like it was helping you develop your ideas, which I know you said was the big challenge that you were experiencing with English.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that was an important part, and then also the feedback loop in terms of just helping you craft, the practice essays and the paragraphs that you were trying to write, and so forth. What was the best thing about working with Patrick?
Patrick, we just got along really well. Like he would kind of separate English with because we had a weird love of role-playing games, so we would like chat a bit about that, and then we kind of continue with working, and we kind of mix it up. We wouldn't be just like stuck in English for ages, because that would make my brain go a bit, like my brain would just kind of deplete more and more and more as we kept going. So I think that was really fun, and yeah, he'd just kind of tailor questions, he would add little things in them, yeah. Yeah,
that's awesome. And then you were also attending some classes here at campus for English as well, is that right? So they're hour and a half sort of skills focused. What were you typically doing in those classes, and what did you get out of them?
In those classes, well, at first we were kind of just doing essay structure, which I kind of knew like the introduction, body, conclusion, and that was kind of it. So I didn't actually know how to write an intro and body and conclusion. So those classes really helped kind of identify what I kind of need to include in those, and kind of the structures I could use when writing those. That was really helpful.
And then coming into your HSC trials and exams, right, was a new syllabus.
Yes.
Just to add, to the pain of English. What did you do in the lead up to your trials or HSC exams to help you, just prep for them for English?
I definitely, even though there's not that many resources, I would just go and I'd beg and find as many resources as I could, so I would have better understanding and practice going into it. Because I need as much help as I can to do well. So that was kind of my going into, and then just consolidating the information, the content and the quotes, and what I was going to say about the quotes.
So you weren't memorising an essay by the sounds of it. It sounds like you were, building your understanding of the text, making sure that you had a library of quotes and that you could reference. And it sounds like you were also building, not a library, but a range of different ideas or arguments you could make about the text. Is that right?
Yeah, because I know that kind of going from, at least so from teachers' perspectives, the kind of reason for the new syllabus, it was a lot more kind of critical thinking and to get rid of kind of the traditional rote learnt essay where you just kind of spit out what you kind of already perfected and practiced. So going into it, I had the mindset going into what they would expect of me, so that kind of helped tailor my study so that I wasn't doing something that would end up failing me or be useless in the end.
Awesome. So it was recognising, okay, I'm not going to rote memorise because of the nature of the new syllabus, and then instead, memorising your quotes at least, and some of the ideas and arguments. How did you memorise them? Did you have a go-to strategy for memorisation?
I would just read them aloud. I weirdly memorize by just walking. If I read things or say things aloud or listening to things while I was walking, that would kind of be something that helped me. And I would spend maybe half an hour just writing my quotes and just repeating in my head, because repetition was something that really helped me with that.
And then any final suggestions, tips, advice for students navigating English, particularly if they're not enjoying English, it's not their subject, they struggle to come up with ideas. What would you say to them?
I'd say grab onto something that you do like. It might be small. I know for me, I quite enjoyed some of the more linguistic kind of aspects, like the actual sentence structures. So if I would try kind of focus a bit more on that, and that gave me a bit more motivation to go and do the rest of the work. And I'd say don't give up. If you're in year 7, you only got 6 more years. If you're in year 12, you got 1 more year. It will come to an end. There will be a time when you are no longer doing English. But yeah, don't give up. You'll get through it, and just give it your best go, because at the end of the day, that's all you can do, and just do your best.
Awesome. So there you have it, guys. If you do not love English and you are struggling, Keean is clearly an example of how you can get through it, right? So it's proof that you will survive the pain that is English, but it's also proof that, if you're hitting a wall and you're finding it just so incredibly challenging to create ideas and write, that there is a pathway that you can actually take to improve what you're doing and get better results. And as Keean shared, it does involve consistency, consistently starting the work early, reading the texts, getting feedback and getting a really fast feedback loop on the work, and also not memorising full essays given the nature of the new syllabus. So, if there's any way that we can help you navigate your journey, if you feel like Keean's journey is like the one that you're on right now, that you are hating English and you have to get through it and you're staring down the barrel of year 12, get in touch with us. We've got a lot of amazing teachers and tutors that are going to be able to help you navigate it, but also make it a little more fun, and help you really lift those results so that you can actually create the options you want when you finish year 12. So stay tuned, we'll have more videos, and if you haven't already, hit subscribe.